Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Redbeard talks, or excuse me, what are we doing? Redbeard talks Redbirds. I am Alex Stovall, your confused host, and this is Matt. He's gonna set us straight, I think. How's it going, Matt? We got some
I'm
interesting
good.
things
I'm real
going on.
good. I don't know how straight I'm gonna set it, but yeah. When you told me about that interview, that podcast, that Jim Edmonds, a
Well,
great.
yeah, that's one of the big things I wanted to talk about is Jim Edmonds. So just to lay it out a little bit. So obviously we got some spring training coming up real quick. I want to touch on that some. But the big interesting thing is Jim Edmonds, number one, is no longer going to be broadcasting. He's off the team. He's not doing it anymore. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And then past that, he's doing this radio interview just a couple days ago with a spot out of St. Louis. TMA is what they call it. Um, and he is basically saying that the culture within the Cardinals organization is not where it should be and expressing a lot of frustration. So we'll get into all that real
That
fast, though.
amazes me.
Yeah, I know. Real fast. So this is February 5th. Spring training is coming. The boys are out on the backfield starting to do some things.
Pitchers and
Pitchers and
catchers, yeah,
catchers officially report in 7 days. So, I mean, baseball's coming fast.
yeah. What do you think of the pitching lineup we have? What did you see from winter meetings?
Well, now you're diving into a little bit of off season, which this has been very strange. I mean, the Cardinals for a long time they haven't done a whole lot during the off season. It seems like this year it's been kind of sad, a little
To say
depressing.
the least.
So,
Well,
okay, you brought it up. Let's hit on some of these things. All right, so we're rebuilding or retooling or whatever the hell you want to call it. It's the same thing. It's a rebuild.
youth movement. That's what
Sure.
I'm calling it.
Um, so we've got some guys that have a ton of trade value, or at least some trade value that we should look at moving, right?
Yeah.
Sonny Gray comes out. He wants to stay. He wants to play in St. Louis. He wants to be a
Hmm.
Cardinal. He thinks that we can still do some good things. And I agree with him, but I think some things have
Yeah.
to go right. And the front office has to at least pretend to try, assuming we're playing well. Wilson Contreras kind of says the same thing. He wanted to be in St. Louis. He wanted to be a Cardinal. He wanted to be a catcher, but apparently that may not happen. Um, Either way, he's going to be here. Sounds like he may be playing some first base. Nolan Arenado apparently wants to be traded to some degree, and I don't blame him a bit. Um, he's got a big, hefty contract, and he's a little bit harder to trade. Plus, there's places where he doesn't want to go. And that's the most interesting thing that's going on or not going on.
Yeah.
But then you've also got like Ryan Helsley. I'm not sure his trade value is ever going to be higher than it is right now. If you're really looking to trade somebody and get some stuff, some pieces in return, he's the guy. And okay, maybe mid-season he'll still have a really high trade value, maybe. But right now we know he does because he's a friggin' stud and all he's done is performed.
Hmm.
Um, Now, having said all that, we're still up in the air with Arenado. I I like him as a ball player. I think he's a reasonable dude. I like having him on the team. Yes, he's underperformed the past couple years. Do I think he still has something to offer? Yes. Is he worth what he's currently making? No. Um, he declined to trade to the Astros, didn't want to go there, which I'm
Yeah,
not
that's hard to
completely sure what
believe.
he's thinking, but that's fine.
Yeah,
What
because
were
you
you
think
gonna
about it. I mean, you think if you're a hitter too, especially with the roster that the Houston Astros have, and really you want to make a run at a world championship, especially before you get too old
say?
too.
So they don't have a third baseman. They don't have Bregman, and they traded Kyle Tucker, right?
Hmm.
And so maybe he's thinking, oh well, they're not really in it. But then they picked up a couple other pieces, and so I mean they're still a quality ball club for sure. Um, if that's his priority, fine. If I'm him, I would love to be swinging for that short porch.
Yeah.
Um, the Yankees wanted to pick him up. They wanted to give us Stroman for Arenado.
Hmm.
And I know there's some folks that don't like Stroman. I know he has not performed like he did 5 years ago, but I mean, he's a quality pitcher, and
Yeah,
his contract value, his annual salary is definitely cheaper than Arenado's, and we need some pitching.
we do.
For
And
me, I
again,
think
a
that's a
change of
good deal.
scenery might be something he
No.
needs.
Yeah. Well, and he could go and play against the Cubs where he used to play, and that always gives people a little bit of juice sometimes.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's potentially a deal to be made still with the Yankees, potentially a deal still with the Red Sox.
What do you think
Um,
of that Red Sox deal?
who are we getting from them potentially?
Um, what? Who
See,
is
that's
it?
the thing. I don't even care. In my opinion, clear the roster spot, save a little bit of money, and give us room to play some young guys that need to play.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh,
I'm not even really that worried about it. I mean, obviously, if we're trading guys, I want to get back the best players that we possibly can get. But in that instance, I don't even think it matters that much.
what do you think about it? He's one of our best, especially a guy who wants to be traded, doesn't really want to be part of the youth movement. I get it, but
He wants to win, and I don't
yeah,
blame him.
no, and I get it too. Especially he's what 33 now,
I think so.
so he's getting there in his career where he's got probably at best 5 years left, unless he wants to go the DH route, which that could always be part of it. But again, at third base, when you're a guy, the Houdini of the hot plate, so to speak, that's that's wearing on you. That's tough. And
Well, and he's clearly showing some signs of his age a little bit. It
yeah,
was only a couple years ago where he was still definitely top, three or four third baseman in baseball.
yeah, and I don't blame him for wanting to leave, especially when you got a organization which is looking to go with the youth movement.
Yeah.
That's virtually telling you, look, we'll pay you your check. We don't really want to pay your check, but
Yeah.
we'll pay you your contract the rest of the way through, and we're looking to go this direction.
Yeah. Well,
Especially,
like I said, it's in my opinion, it's so important to clear a spot. We've got Nolan Gorman, who needs an opportunity to prove himself that he can be a quality everyday player that we know he has the potential to be. We've got Thomas Sajasi, which in my opinion seems to be a stud. I want that guy playing.
yeah,
We've got um, Donovan, who is kind of like Tommy Edmond, but probably
hmm
not quite as good. Can put him anywhere. His defense is great. He's going to get on base. He's going to have a decent batting average. I love having him play, and I don't even care where. He could play all over the baseball field, and he's going to be fine. And we got to have room for these guys to play.
yeah. Who was that we traded to the Dodgers last year?
Tommy.
Yeah, and God
Tommy
bless.
Edmond got hurt,
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden it became a bigger deal, and he wasn't able to participate in spring training, and then it kept dragging and kept dragging and kept dragging. They traded him before he ever even did any rehab. Well, no, he did some rehab work with the Cardinals, I think, and then he got traded, and then
and
all of
then
a
at the
sudden
end of
he's
the year,
healthy playing for the Dodgers and doing
and
fantastic.
he lights on fire. Yeah, and we virtually got nothing for him.
Right. And Dylan Carlson traded him, which,
Yeah,
we all kind of
I
saw
forgot
that
about
coming
that one.
after the first few months of the season. I feel bad for that guy. His spring training was amazing. I was looking forward to him doing well. But he went to Tampa and he started playing a little bit better, and I hope he does well.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of question marks for me with this 2025 season. You
Well,
know.
it'll be interesting. There's a lot of players that are hopefully going to get a lot of playing time that a lot of folks are much less familiar with. But
hmm
there's a lot of talent there. I think we got to get them up to the bigs, let them play, and do something that the Cardinals don't do very well. Leave them alone. Let them do what they do. Quit changing how they play their game because that's how we screw up our players, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's this over. I don't want to say analyzing, but like this over coaching. It turns some guys off.
Yeah.
To where
Well,
again they're in the
and it,
bigs
it
for a
did work
reason.
in one instance. Victor Scott, he had been
Yeah,
told by tons and tons of people he needed to do a little leg kick, and he didn't want to do it, didn't want to do it, didn't want to do it. Finally, Ryan Ludwig last year convinced him to do it. He started doing it, and he took off.
yeah.
So I don't know. Things happen.
I just look at that as you're just listening to coach in there, right? Here's the one problem.
So
Is your one problem. Just
yeah.
look, it worked. What do you know?
But we got baseball coming soon. First full squad workout is February 16th.
Mm-hmm.
So that's 11 days. That's less than 2 weeks. Um, I know that we've got Chase Davis in there working out. I saw him roll up to the facility yesterday. Saw a couple boys out there doing some outfield drills this morning. It looked like I was at a distance. I couldn't tell, but it looked like Siani may have been out there.
Yeah.
But we got some folks there. They're definitely starting to get their work in.
Well,
Um,
today's what, the fifth, and our first game's what, the 22nd
First game is the 22nd against the Marlins.
against the Marlins. Yeah, which is, I guess, since we both share the same ballpark,
Yep.
is kind of fitting. And then you got the Astros after that,
Yep.
which, yeah, so it gets really kind of, thick here to start. And I
Oh
don't
yeah.
really know how much the Marlins, but I still look at the Astros as a quality team.
Oh, they are. I
And then
mean,
look at,
they're not the powerhouse that they were, but they're still quality. They're
yeah.
working for a division title for sure.
Yeah, and then you look at that, I guess, was it Friday against the Mets, which there's talent on that roster. I mean, it might be underperforming at times, but
Jesus
there's still
Christ,
talent there.
The Mets are a quality team. I
Yeah,
mean, they may not all be playing well all at the same time, but they're a quality team. And I heard rumors for a minute that they were trying to get Vladdy Jr. on their squad, trying to trade for him.
really.
If they would have, can you imagine that team?
Yeah, and but
Oh,
see, that's the thing, is it's you look at your New Yorks and your LAs, and these are the teams that are really becoming very aggressive now. And I don't know if that's good for the game overall, because you get some of your smaller teams. And again, where does St. Louis fit in all this? Are we able to
we used to
work
fit
with the
very
big boys?
nicely about
Yeah,
10 years
or
ago.
are we going to fall back to like the smaller stuff? And then again, you look at this. We should have no problem with Milwaukee. That's the rabbit we're chasing now. They're the division leader.
You know what happened? A few years ago, we kind of switched places. Milwaukee started being the new St. Louis, and St. Louis started
Yeah.
being the pissant Milwaukee team.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happened, and they're outdoing us in our own at our own game.
And that's what's just disgusting.
Yeah, it really is. So actually, that kind of leads up into what's going on. So Jim Edmonds
Yeah.
went on an interview the other day on the radio, a radio show in St. Louis, and he's telling them about how he's not going to be in the broadcast booth this year. And apparently, he was already kind of thinking, I don't know if I want to do it. I'm not really into it. And then
Mm-hmm.
his boss called him and he said, and so Jimmy apparently told him, "Oh, I'm not really into it this year." And his boss was like, "Oh, well, I don't think we have room for you anyway." And so Jim
Yeah.
was like, "Okay, great. That's fine. Thank you. Have a good day."
I'll stay on the farm. Yeah. I mean,
So, and then after that, I'm not even really sure how he got into it, but Jim Edmonds basically talked about how the culture within the Cardinals organization is really going downhill, specifically talking about former players not feeling wanted, needed, don't want you around, you're not invited around, you
mm-hmm.
don't have time for you, don't need you, that type of thing. And I know you listened to it, so uh, give me your thoughts. Let's talk about this a little bit. It was wild.
Well, you had, again, going back to Arenado, was talking about, I want to see Mark McGuire at spring ball here.
So that was a story Jim told in
Yeah,
the
and virtually you get just no, we don't need him. What do you mean we don't need him? And again, there's a time when Cardinals, no matter if they played in the '60s, if they were still alive, they were still coming to that clubhouse,
Yes, sir.
and they were still treated as family. And if they're losing that aura of the clubhouse of guys that as Jim Edmonds said about him and Bob Gibson, asked him to sign, "Why need you to get more hits?" Kind of jovial, talking to him. You can't have a Cardinal team that isn't like that. I mean, you go back to the '60s when you had guys who were at the end of their career. Roger Maris, Orlando Cepeda are two that come to mind. Wanted to finish their careers in St. Louis and really had successful careers on other teams, but they knew that was a baseball player's ballpark. That was a baseball player's fan base.
Baseball heaven.
Yes. I mean, look at Lance Berkman. Where did he want to finish his career at? It's not too hard. I mean, Larry Walker,
Beltron,
yeah, I mean, it's just the names are Eric Davis.
Reggie
So,
Sanders.
yeah. I mean, the thing is you could go on and on. And again, if these guys have a chance anywhere, usually, especially if they've played in all the ballparks around the major leagues, where do they want to spend most of their time at? It's no
It,
odd,
it was a destination, and it's not feeling like that anymore.
Yeah, and that's the thing is you could have a Cardinal team that go back to the '04 team that won 105 games, or won 2 years ago that won under 80 games, and the fans are still going to show up. They've broken attendance records year in and year out. They still,
We'll
but again,
see
if you
about
can't,
that. That's changed the past 2 years, though,
well,
where
because
folks are getting frustrated and
look at the product you're giving them.
they feel like the front office is talking to them and treating them like they're just tone deaf politicians. Don't know, don't care. Just
Mm-hmm.
make sure you get me your vote.
And it looks like that team that St. Louis used to have before they made their '04 championship run. I mean, it was really after kind of like the mid '90s. They kind of lost their identity. I mean, in the '80s, they were really like with Whitey Ball, very defensive. Now they started scoring a lot of runs, but then we score 6 runs, but we give up 9 and lose.
Yeah,
And kind of that's where we're at now. We'll
that's
score
fair.
5 runs, but yet we give up 7.
But at that
It's like, well,
point, we still had Stan and Red and Bob Gibson and Lou Brock
mm-hmm.
and everybody still coming and participating.
Well, like I said, is that's very true. But you look at now, you still got Jim Edmonds, Mark McGuire. There's still great Cardinals out there. I guarantee
There's a
you.
massive list of these guys.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's the thing, though, right? It's so my when I first heard all of this, my first thought was, "Oh my God, this is horrible. I can't believe it." And it kind of validates some of the feelings that I've been having for the past couple of years. But then I took a step back from it and I said, "No, all right, let's think about it this way. I feel like Jim Edmonds was doing some venting, getting
yeah.
some stuff off of his chest, maybe elaborating a little bit, but I also feel like where there's smoke, there's fire. So I feel like
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely an issue, but maybe not quite to the extent that he was making it sound like. But either way, that's still a major problem.
But you could tell. I mean, he's not going to tell a story. There is a disconnect. And again, this disconnect, if you've heard, is started coming in since 2015. It seems like now it's just rolling downhill.
Yeah.
And again, if you're
Well,
going to get
and
rid
so
of,
if anyone is unaware of kind of what Edmonds was saying, he basically said that the former players don't feel welcome. They're not invited around. Have been told, no, we don't need you. You touched on this earlier. Apparently, Jim told a story about Arenado asking if the Cardinals would bring Mark McGuire to
yeah,
spring training to help with hitting, however long ago this was. And the
yeah,
Cardinals apparently said, no, thanks. We've got everything we need. And it's like, that's Mark McGuire. That's a Cardinal. That's a great Cardinal. What?
yeah.
And then
I,
you go to Chris Carpenter,
mm,
bulldog of a pitcher, knows how to pitch, knows how to work, knows how to compete. And he just went over to the Angels and started helping the Angels. Why is he not helping us? You got
exactly. And
you got
he's a
Yachty and
great Cardinal.
Alford
He's
out
the guy
there
who
wanting to
should
be
have his number
involved.
retired.
I
I
just
mean, 29 should be on that wall for the 2000 season alone, where he put us on his back. I mean, he really did.
2011.
Yeah. But again,
Yeah,
going back to 2011 again, you look at someone like Wayno, who was retiring. I'm sorry, who was recovering from an injury. That Tommy John.
yeah, he was hurt.
They literally would check on him even when he was going, off, stadium grounds and going to a specialist. He would have the GM check in. How's it going? How are you progressing? You know, you're not getting that right now. So of course, a lot of these athletes, even though they're making a ton of money, they're going to start feeling like they're unallowed.
Yeah.
Does this organization really give a crap of how I feel? I
Well,
mean, do they
so my
really care?
thing is, and I've kind of mentioned this a few times to a few different people, maybe even on the podcast. I feel like the Cardinals have been too focused on the analytics and the statistics side,
Mm-hmm.
and they're getting away from baseball people, baseball men, baseball knowledge.
Yeah.
And okay, yeah, the stats and the analytics, that's a part of it. It's a big part. It's not going to go away, but you have to keep baseball knowledge and feeling and gut instincts. And these are people, they're not machines. You
Hmm.
can't just run computer models and oh, well, this is what's going to happen today. Well, no, it's not because these are people playing people. It just you got to have baseball people in these positions that know how this works and what it's like to go through this, how you go through a 162 game season in the middle of summer when it's 90% humidity and 102 degrees outside in St. Louis. All these different things. I feel like they've gotten too analytical. And yet I
Yeah.
can even take you back to Mike Schilt.
Hmm.
He came up through the Cardinals. He became a manager. He learned baseball through the Cardinals. He was not a major league player. He came up through the system. He was the Cardinal way man. He
Hmm.
was manager for the Cardinals. He was successful. Everyone loved him. He did great. He had a great year. They went to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And he sat down during the offseason with the front office and he had the nerve to say, I forget what it was, but something about how maybe you can't use the analytics all the time or something like that. And he got fired for that.
Yeah.
And ever since we've had one playoff appearance with 0 wins. Now, granted, we weren't great at that point when he was here, but we were better.
Yeah. And that's true, but it's not his fault. You remember our pitching was starting to ail us then. And again, our ace on the staff was really what, a 40-year-old man with Wayno. I mean, it was virtually his last year because he was trying to get 200 wins or something, you know.
No, that was 22. So that was definitely Marmol was here.
Yeah.
Schilt left in after 20 or 21.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It's you look at this. I mean, what do you think Augie Bush would think of this now? What do you think if you were to go into that front office? What do you think he would look around and and go in those the GM's office, the president,
I
or
don't
look at
know.
the the owner now and say,
It's a different world. And actually, I mean, this group of ownership and Mosliak, our GM, I
yeah,
believe, right? Yeah, he's no, he bumped himself up to some other role. Now he's got somebody else that's a pretend GM now, Mike Gersh. This is still all the same people that was around when we had all those great years. Okay, Mosliak wasn't around for '06. He came in what around '08, '09, something like
hmm,
that. And so he led us to 2011, even though he was still pretty new in his position.
yeah.
But we had great baseball teams. Like we
That
had probably
really
3 seasons in there where we could have won the World Series potentially, and we
we
didn't.
could have won. You think about it: 11, 12, 13, 14, and I forget about the 10 season. But if you look at the NL champions that year with San Francisco,
Yeah.
we were losing a lot of 7-game series in the NLCS.
Yep.
And again, I think that comes down to again where you get big city, little city, to where they
Well,
can.
the point being, we had great teams and we were competing for a championship year after year.
Hmm.
And it was still with the same ownership, with the same management. But something has happened. Things have changed. Maybe the older DeWitt is no longer really
What do you think of
involved.
DeWitt? I mean, you think he should sell immediately? My brother does.
I don't know. I hesitate to say that, but whatever's happening now is not working. I mean, we'll see what happens with, by the way, is it Chaim? Is it Chaim? I've heard it two different ways. Chaim Bloom, Chaim Bloom,
Yeah.
whatever his name is. They brought him in. He he's had some massive success building teams. So we've got something to look forward to, but there's also been, there's been issues that he's had in Boston after he built the team, right?
Hmm.
And he wasn't in Chicago. That was Theo Epstein, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, we've got him there. We're going to see what happens. They're definitely investing more in the minor leagues and the development, which great. I don't know why you weren't doing that before. You dumbass.
Yeah. Well,
But
you look at this also and you think, here we are with our GM now from the guy we got from Boston. What was his name?
Chaim Hyam Bloom.
Yeah. Yeah, he has some good teams in Boston, but he also has some bad teams in Boston.
Well, he did build up Tampa Bay, and I mean
Yeah,
they're still operating a quality baseball team on a shoestring budget.
and that is very true. Which again, because you can always say that their budget is no bigger than ours, probably smaller,
Much
and
smaller.
they're getting the bang for the buck that they are. Because
Well, our payroll, I don't know if you realize this, our payroll like past 2 years was around 200 million.
yeah,
I mean, we were probably
underperforming,
in the top third of baseball,
and we're underperforming. Absolutely.
way underperforming. Tampa, I don't know, they're 100 million or less.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But
they're getting a whole lot more bang for their buck.
and you look for that,
Milwaukee's payroll is definitely less than ours. It's significantly less.
but again, I mean, our problem is again is defense and pitching. I wouldn't say as much as defense, but our pitching is we're going out on the mound practically a night with somebody who's not just over 30, but well into his 30s.
Well, and
I mean, Sonny's not, but
That doesn't even bother me. But a lot of it goes back to the culture question, the culture conversation. If you don't have baseball people helping to run a baseball team and helping baseball players play baseball, if you just got a lot of dudes with computers and calculators trying to figure out what you should do, I'm sorry, you're going to win some, but you're not going to see a whole lot of success. You want to talk Moneyball, the movie. Let's talk about the movie.
yep,
Obviously, there's real life because that's where it came from.
yeah,
Okay, they started making decisions based on some numbers and analytics that other people were not doing. That's how all this got started.
mm-hmm,
They did some great things, but they still had baseball people in there making decisions about baseball and helping to lead people to play better baseball.
mm-hmm.
It's a combination. It's not a computer. That's my
Wait,
tagline. I'm going with it. It's a
and
combination, not a computer.
that's also the thing. Even if we get rid of Arenado, Nolan goes to another team, we're probably still paying a majority of his contract anyway.
Yeah,
So I mean, you're kind of damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
I know. I know. Now the good news is
And we're
we
without him.
hadn't talked a whole lot about this, but we got a lot of quality, exciting young players that are coming through.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got a lot of young pitchers. Now, some of them are not ready, but we got some pitching prospects that are exciting. Tink Hintz, dude is a
Yeah,
stud. Um, this is my favorite one. Quinn Matthews. I got to see him in Palm Beach this past season quite a bit
yeah.
before he moved up. He came out of, I think, Stanford, and he just from the get-go blowing people away, making them look silly. And he charged straight through Palm Beach. He went straight through Peoria. He was in Springfield for a little bit, and he was up in Memphis before the season was over.
Wow.
Dude is good. He's a starting pitcher. He's a lefty. He's got a good fastball. He's got a good changeup. I've even seen a really good slider come out of his hand. He's exciting. I'm looking forward to him.
So let's say you put him in the majors now. Let's say you put him at like the three spot. Okay. So he's
Well,
third in the
he's not
rotation.
going to start the year in the majors. I guarantee you that.
Well, I'm saying let's give him 2 months. So we're 50 games in. Okay. You call him up, you put him in. I mean, and let's say he does struggle a little bit. Does that break his psyche to where it's like, well, now we're
I don't think
going to send him
so.
back?
I don't think so. He's mentally tough. I've met him, I've interviewed him, I've watched him play, I've talked to people in the organization. I think he's going to be good. I
Then,
think he's mentally tough enough to deal with the struggles. Like I said, he came from college, not high school.
yeah,
So he's a little bit older, a little bit more mature. He's kind of been
yeah,
through it some.
that's important
I think he's going to be all right. And
because that's the thing is,
another guy that's kind of similar. He's a left fielder, I think. Chase Davis.
yeah,
He he came out of college somewhere in maybe Arizona. Maybe
mm-hmm,
played at AU. Um, he's a lefty. He actually looks a lot like Carlos Gonzalez in the batter's box.
okay,
Um, he's got a big bat. He can strike out. He struggled at Palm Beach. He was with Palm Beach for at least half the season, and then all of a sudden it clicked. He got used to the pitching and what they were doing and figured out how to make adjustments, and he took off. He went to Peoria. He was in Peoria for a hot minute, and then he was in Springfield to finish off the season. And that's another guy I'm pretty excited about. And that we're not even talking about our top draft pick, JJ Weatherholt.
Yeah, I
He's a
mean,
stud shortstop. We'll see what he does. I got to see him play, and he's exciting.
yeah, I guess that's the thing is you got to look at how these young guys gel. How they because again we do need an infusion on that mound.
We
There's
do.
no, and
Well,
again you
there's
got to
a
look at.
lot of guys who have had a little bit of major league experience on the pitching side that
Mhm.
are, I think they're ready to contribute. We'll see how they actually do. But there's a lot of guys who have had some experience and they can and need to get in there and let us see what they can actually do in a season.
What do you think about Jordan Walker?
Tons of potential, tons of talent, and I feel like the Cardinals have been trying to tweak him to death.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting in his head and messing with him.
Do you
I
sit him
know
down in the
that
if
this
he starts to
past,
struggle again? Do you put him in three AAA?
I think you put him in the majors, you leave him alone.
I do too, because I think you
I
put him
think if
down.
you send him down again, you're like throwing in the towel, you're waving the white flag.
Hmm.
I think you put him in the majors, let him play. I
Yeah,
mean, this is we're not going to win a division this year. Let the
no,
man play. Let's see what he can do.
exactly. I mean, because like I said, I don't. I think if you feel you got to knock him back down to AAA, you might as well just trade him.
Yep.
Because like I said, it's as you said, it's going to just damage his psyche so much, or like he's going to start doubting himself, and that's when you just got to let
I
it
hope
go.
that doesn't happen. I really, really don't for numerous reasons. One, as a fan, I want to see him play well for the Cardinals. Two,
Yeah.
I want him to do well for himself. Three, if that happens and he gets traded, you know he's going to go somewhere else and he's going to succeed, and we're going to look like idiots
Hmm.
again.
Yeah.
Anyway, how about them Cardinals?
Yeah. Well, and that was one thing. I mean, you had Jim on his interview on that podcast was kind of like, well, there's really nothing gonna you're gonna want to see anyway. So I think he is upset, but I also think he's doubtful about rookie contention.
About what?
About the rookies actually all coming together and giving us a contender this year. Because really, you look at
I
our
don't even think
division.
he knows or cares. I don't think he's paying
Yeah,
attention. I think he's gotten frustrated to the point where he's no longer paying attention and he's totally checked out.
yeah, and I think he
And
said,
that really bothers me. I know that like online, at least 50% of the people, they just hate hearing him on a broadcast, which I don't understand.
I don't know
I
either.
sincerely do not understand. I love him on a broadcast. I like to
But
hear the background stories, the information from a ball player. But either way, him
but
being that frustrated with the organization in my mind is a huge problem because he was a huge part of some of the biggest Cardinals teams we've had in the past 25 years.
well, he's got a ring with us. I mean, he was on the '04 team, which again, you think in the last 25 years, barring the World Series itself, was probably the most talented team we've had. And again, which they just ran into a buzzsaw, which would be probably anybody. I mean, you got a
Yeah,
team that comes back down from 3-0 and then just annihilates everybody.
yeah.
So,
No, it's just having guys like that, and it's always been a thing for the Cardinals. Being a Cardinal fan, it's been something I've always been proud of, is having, you know, all the guys. You got Chris Carpenter, you got Adam Wainwright, you got
mm-hmm.
Yadier Molina, you got Pujols, you got Roland, you got Edmonds, and you keep on going further and further back. You got Ray Lankford, you got Ozzie Smith, you got Mark McGuire, you got Willie
Willie
McGee.
McGee.
You just keep going,
Yeah.
and
Vince Coleman.
that's something that I've always been so proud of, and I think most Cardinal fans are, and so I think most people have or will find all of that very jarring, even if it's not 100% true. I think it's extremely jarring to hear, and it makes you go, "What the hell is going on?"
Yeah.
Anyway, that's where I'm at. We're just about out of time, Matt. How about we do this again soon? We'll talk a little bit of spring training and figure out what's coming, and maybe Arenado will find a new job. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, real quick. I mean, and of course, Alex, whenever you have me, I'm ready to go on. I love
Perfect.
doing it. How do you think Goldie's going to do in New York, real quick?
I think he's going to do all right. I hope he has kind of a Matt Carpenter type of a season over there like
Hmm.
he did for the Yankees. I want to see that guy do well.
I wish the
Yeah,
best for him
he and I
also.
both went to old Texas State,
Yeah,
so I'm a Bobcat with him. I want to
yeah.
see the boy do well.
And like I said, it's I mean,
Let's sign off before it cuts us off.
gotcha.
Thanks, Matt. Let's go Cardinals.
Let's go Cardinals.